everyone. Welcome to Interviews by Kathleen. I am your host, Kathleen Osborne. I write science fiction, romance, and I enjoy interviewing lovely people like Jacque Hillman. Now, Jacque hails from Tennessee, but we met in Arizona where she now resides. And Jacque is a publisher, a hybrid publisher, and she has been working in this business for 20 years. The woman knows what she's talking about. So, Jacque, first off, how did you get started in your business?
I was a newspaper editor and magazine editor for 30 years, and I took the senior manager's buyout from Gannett in 2012 and began my husband and I opened the book publishing business in 2007, but we didn't get extremely active until 2012 when I took the senior manager's buyout. So that was the beginning. But honestly, the reason that we began this was I reviewed many books when I worked for the newspaper, and a friend brought me her book, which was on lighthouses of America, beautifully done. Her photography was her specialty, and she had spent probably $25,000 publishing this book.
Oh my gosh.
When you opened the cover, it had navel misspelled. It was Navel instead of Naval. And I did not say one word, but I went home and showed it to my husband, and I said, we can do better than this. We need to help authors. Because he was also a writer. He had written for the New York Times and the Chicago Trib and had worked for many years as a writer, in addition to being in information technology. So we knew we could do better. And that's when we really got busy.
Okay. Now, you're in business with who else right now? Or are you a sole proprietor?
I'm a sole proprietor.
Okay.
I have 2 assistant editors who work with me remotely, one in Kentucky and one in Tennessee. And we have one we call on occasionally from Texas. So we have assistant editors.
So I know right now you're remote from here, or you were going to be. Are you still out of state right now?
No, we're registered both in Tennessee and Arizona. So
okay.
I live in Arizona permanently now.
No, I meant that you were going to go to an appointment out of state. No, okay.
Well, yes. In July, I am going July 1st back to Jackson because we're dedicating the Sterling Awards 2010-2026 Legacy book at Jackson City Hall. And it has all the bios of all these Sterling Award winners who have done great things in their communities in West Tennessee for years. And we want to preserve their history. And we just won the Tennessee 250 Publications grant for the book, so we're really excited.
Oh, I bet you are. I wouldn't mind having something like that.
Yes.
Now, we were talking before we came on. You do multiple genres, correct?
Yes, that is true. Yes. In particular, we focus on history. We do a lot of history books, which are well received, books on political science, history, memoirs, but we also do fiction. We have published novels and done quite well with some of those that have won awards. So we basically look at the manuscript and decide whether this is something that will fit our portfolio. And we have 3 editors that read every book. We go through each manuscript with multiple proofreads. We will do developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading. We design it and lay it out and then have it printed by Ingram in Nashville. For the most part, we have used some other printers, but mostly with Ingram in Nashville.
Okay. Now, we were talking earlier, also you're a hybrid publisher.
Yeah.
And for those who are listening and watching that don't understand what a hybrid publisher is, would you explain that, please?
Yes, I would be glad to explain that. So while we have once or twice in the past accepted books as traditional, which means that we would actually handle the expenses and publish the book, for the most part, the author pays us to edit and design the book. That's where our hours come from. And we don't do packages because every author needs something completely different from every other author. So you pay us by the hour. And then once we have the book ready to upload for print, we upload to Ingram in Nashville, and the author can order however many books they want to order. It could be 10 for family only, or it could be 2,000. That is entirely on what the author plans to do. And of course, they order the books and get the wholesale price, the regular print price, which, for example, a paperback might be $3.50 to $4, and a hardback might range from $9.50 to $11 or $12, depending on the size of the book, the number of the illustrations, all those factors. And then we will also market the book if the author wants us to do it, but we're paid by the hour for all of that.
Okay. Now, you also, because you were talking about working with different artists and making sure that the layout is correct. So, and I took that as that you were working on children's books also.
We do. We do have a children's books division, and one of our top books is Mrs. Mullendeck's Big Sneeze, which was Suzanne Evans' first book, and it won the National Gold Medal from the Independent Book Publishers Association. But we do have award-winning children's books, and we work with different illustrators. Wanda Stanfield has done 25 books for us. She's from Jackson, and she's a sculptor and an artist. She's wonderful, but we've also used Cammie Wolf here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we have illustrators in Pennsylvania, Florida, you name it. We look at what we try to do is when we have a children's book, we look at what the topic is and what the author envisions. Then we have the illustrator send them 3 sketches, black and whites, of what they see in their minds from the author's description. Then the author chooses that illustrator based on their style, because every illustrator has a different style.
Yeah. Just like any artist does.
Right.
I work closely with different artists, not for my books, but just because I volunteer with a art alliance, and you see all of the creativity that is, it amazes me, the people that can draw. Yes, I can draw by words, but somebody who can draw by hand and envision it and carry it all the way through just blows me away.
Yeah. And we do suggest that they find a good illustrator. And I do realize I have had some authors and who do their own illustrations because they're artists as well, and that's great. That's great. But we do make sure that they do not take images from online and try to create their illustrations based on something they have taken from online, because that's copyright issues measured.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And does the author keep their copyright, or do you have any part of that?
They keep their copyright. That's in our contract. They keep their copyright. We do file the ISBN for them.
Okay.
I have told all of my authors that anytime you feel that you want your book manuscript back and everything that we did on it, I'll put it on a flash drive and get it to you, or put it in Dropbox and send it to you immediately. And in fact, I sent all the illustrations for 2 children's books to one of our authors recently because she wanted to do her own marketing. And I said, that's fine. Here it is.
That's awesome. Oh, do you have them on your website also for sale, or how does that work?
I have not tried to sell any books through my website, and that was a deliberate decision on my part. After we went, well, of course, we're members of IBPA, so we go through all their sessions and training. And one of the sessions pointed out one of the ladies who is a smaller, we're considered, I call us a boutique publisher because we're a small company and we have wonderful award-winning books, but we're not a mega company, and that's the way we want to keep it. But I just you know talked to someone about that and just felt like selling books was not the way to go, because this publisher said it cost her $4,000 a month to try to sell the books because she had to hire someone to manage that part of the website. And she said, and then if any are returned, then that's a loss to your company. And of course, this was back in COVID when she was talking about this. And she said she took a major loss one month with books being returned because people just weren't out shopping and whatever. And I just said, okay, here's the thing. The author makes the most money when they go out and set up book signings and speak and sell the books themselves. That's
Yes,
where their profit is. And
absolutely.
so that's the reason I've tried not to sell the books. I have actually going to the Tucson Book Festival recently with some of my books was the first time that I've taken any books with me to a festival to try to sell. And it went well. I thought it went well.
I
I
think it did too.
Yeah, yeah. You were there with me and it went well. I
Hmm.
did get tickled because so many people walked up to Bill Dance's book, Fishtail, 75 Years of Casting Storylines. And of course, he's the ESPN, Bill Dance, Saltwater, Bill Dance Outdoors.com. And he sold 2,000 books immediately in a few months. But he sells on his own website. He did not want to sell online. People kept walking up to the booth and picking up his book. And I think it was because he had that big smile on and that UT hat and that giant bass.
Hmm.
And the other day I got tickled and I said I should have had a singing bass on the front of the table.
There you go. Yeah, that would have
Yeah,
drawn him. Now,
right.
you also are a ghostwriter, are you not?
I am. I am. I wrote Captain of the Tides, Gunnar Morgan, which won the Military Writers Society of America bronze medal. I wrote it for Charlie Morgan. This is about his grandfather, who was called the man who started the Spanish-American War because he was the Navy diver that went down on the USS Maine when it sank in Havana Harbor after an explosion. And he is the one who certified that the explosion went inward, not outward, if meaning there was a mine in the harbor.
Ah,
Now, they had trouble with magazines exploding on ships back then because of where the gunpowder was kept. And that was why they were trying to determine the shape of the hole from, where it went down. And there were 276 men died that day. And that was the start of the Spanish-American War. Gunnar Morgan led an amazing life. I spent 4 years researching this book. Charlie Morgan had his grandfather's sea chest with all of his Navy documents in it, but we went far beyond even what we had there. We didn't have his personal letters. So we wrote this as historical fiction, but it was based on all of those Navy documents that he had in that sea chest. He ended up working with Gunnar Morgan, worked with Thomas Edison in a secret Navy base during the war, developing smoke bombs and exploding shells. And they had an explosion. He nearly died. Two soldiers did die, but he was saved by a counter that was in front of him. Then he went on after the war, much later, he helped Pan Am Airways develop their airfields in Florida and Cuba and South America. So this man
wow.
had an amazing life.
I'm not a history buff, but I just get swept up when I hear the passion of that's in your voice. My husband has that same passion when he starts talking about history and the history. He's a science fiction buff, but he'll go into the history of it. It's if I look like I'm kind of dazed, it's because inside I'm amazed at what people have done and achieved in their lifetimes. And sometimes it's by accident
Yes,
that it
yes,
happens.
yes. I think of Jacque Wurzburg. We handled her memoir, and the Tennessee Human Rights Commission is named in her honor. She was a young attorney who, during the garbage strikes in Memphis back in 1968, went before the Memphis City Council and, as a young Jewish attorney, demanded that they do something to respect these men and pay them decent wages. And she went on from that to work for 2 U.S. presidents and was highly active in civil rights. And when she started her memoir, she was only going to do it for her children because she said, my girls don't know what I've done with my life. And as I listened to her and I went to her home and helped her write this, I said, Jacque, this is not just something for your girls. This is a story that needs to be told for the world. And the Human Rights Commission has bought several hundred books and given them as gifts to people all across the state and in the nation. So she was selected for the Jewish Book Festival tour and toured nationwide. That when she signed her first book that night at Barnes and at Davis Kidd in Memphis, 150 people were in the room, and there was standing room only. Well, probably 200. We won't say how many because I'm sure there was a fire code. But anyway, it was crowded. And she sold about 170 books that night. And it went on from there. Wow. When you have an amazing story like that of someone who just is brilliant, goes to college and just decides she needs to change the world just a little bit, but she never saw that this future would come in her life where she would be doing this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And she also wrote mediation law for the state of Tennessee. So
wow.
She is a world-renowned mediator.
And don't we need them?
Yes, we do. We do.
What made you decide to move? I know you moved to Phoenix when?
2021.
2021?
Yes. My husband was very ill and had a series of strokes, and both my daughters live here and my granddaughter, and we wanted him to have some time with them because we knew this was not going well. So we moved here in September of 2021, and he passed on December 20th of 2022. And then I bought a house and moved out here to Apache Junction in a new build community. But I determined to stay. I love the Southwest. I miss the Tennessee spring, but I don't miss the blizzards in the winter.
That's why we moved up here. We were in Southern California, and after 10 days of 120 degrees and violence, so much violence in our little community, it went from being one of the richest communities in the United States to one of the poorest. And I was afraid, to be honest. And my husband and I had driven through the mountains in Arizona. We didn't want to go back to heat, but we wanted 4 seasons. Both of us did. But mild. We'd been in North Dakota. He'd been in Iceland. We'd been in England. So I was raised up north and didn't want that. Didn't want the tornadoes. No, thank you. Didn't want hurricanes. So that's what brought us to Arizona, and we love it here.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more about the tornadoes. As a journalist, I covered many tornadoes, and I have seen the devastation they can do. So, I don't miss those. That's for sure.
No, I can remember as a young girl, we had a tornado come through, and it didn't affect where we lived, but it affected cousins and uncles and stuff like that. And my brother went out to one of their farms, and the typical straw through a pole, and all the animals were safe, and even the chickens, but the buildings were destroyed, or half the buildings were, and just so terrible. And, you know, my mom was from North Carolina. I saw pictures of hurricanes, the damage that hurricanes did, how far inland that damage goes.
Yes. You know, I can't imagine going through a hurricane. Thank goodness I have never done that. But I've had friends who have, so it is.
Now, just to let the audience know, we met through Arizona Professional Writers.
That's right.
And what led you to Arizona Professional Writers?
I saw some of your marketing online, and I thought it is time for me to get involved. Of course, right after my husband passed, I was involved in his estate, and then I had some health issues that year as well. But then I said, I want to get out and get busy again with editing and writing. And when I saw your marketing, I said, I think this is a group that I would like to meet. So I sent out an email, received an immediate response, and I have found a great group of like-minded people, authors, writers, publishers. I'm really enjoying it because you're also welcoming. And we all have similar stories to tell about being authors. We know what it's like. Worrying about getting those first words down on the page and making sure they're perfect, and then worrying from the time the book starts to run on the press. Is it right? Is it right? Is it right? You know? So we have shared a lot of professional knowledge, which is great. And I enjoy hearing from all of your stories about the things that you've done with your books.
And I think, because just for the audience, Jackie's going to be one of the vice presidents of the organization. She's an incoming, and I'm an incoming president. And so it's going to be a team, and it's going to be a fabulous team because we've got great ideas for what's going to come, because I know your heart is so open for people to, and to me, this is what APW is about, helping people become who they should be in the writing world.
Right. And giving good advice.
Yes.
As much wise counsel as we can, so that they take the right path. You know, that we can say, you know, advise them, okay, what is your goal? What is your genre? Where do you want this book to go? You know, what can we do to help you with this? And of course, the number one thing is to write every day. And
sometimes
words on paper, you know, don't put them in a piece of paper under your bed. I had a lady tell me one time she wrote her entire memoir and kept it under her bed for many years and then threw it away.
Oh, I have everything I've ever written. I've started journals. I found that journals are not for me. But I have all these half-started journals. I still have them. The ones that were the most consistent were prayer journals, and dream journals. But the writing journal, it was more just sit down and write.
Yes.
And like you said, and as my good friend Paula says, unless you have something written, you can't edit it. You can't do anything with it. So you must apply but to chair.
Yes. You have to put the words out of your brain and put them into your computer. Or, you know, I gave this advice to someone the other day because they were having trouble getting words on paper. And I said, you know, some years ago, I would take a recorder with me in my car And I would be driving down I-40 in Tennessee, and I would dictate a chapter to myself, knowing that I could. I mean, there are actually companies that will take your dictation and transcribe it for you, but it's kind of expensive. But, at least it got me started. And I would say, okay, that's a start, but I need to add this, this, and this into this chapter to make it go forward. Yeah.
Yeah. What that leads me to a question. What do you see as the biggest change or changes in the last few years and months in the writing industry?
So obviously, I think you have to face the fact that AI is with us, and I do not trust AI. Let me give you an example. I know that people believe in it. A lot of people love it. They love ChatGPT. I get it. But there have been many lawsuits against these companies for using images and words from other authors. But as an example, the other day, I was looking for a background for a book that I'm working on. And out of curiosity, I asked AI. And AI responded that, well, she's not dead. She's still living in wherever. And I knew that this person had been deceased for many years. And I had a copy of the obituary. So there's just one example of why you cannot trust AI.
Well, don't you think it's like with, there's a lot of, I've worked with AI, and I'll be writing away and it will be responding because I use it more for sounding board and to brainstorm. And all of a sudden it started talking about another book I had written. And I'm like, I laughed and I said, I think I'm going to have to turn you off because I need to empty your cache because you got confusion going here. And when I told it, it was trying to combine two different stories, it started laughing. It told me, oh, that's funny. And you're right. But, I don't care who it is or if it's automated, mechanical, personal, you still want to go through it. I learned the hard way. I had somebody help me, and I paid them, and I published, and I had to pull it because I trusted where I shouldn't have. And so you have to do, this is where I think every person has to do due diligence.
Yes, they do. I think that's one of the things that my two assistant editors, by the way, worked with me when we were both in the newspaper business. And in fact, I hired both of them at the Jackson Sun. That's where we worked together. But then they went on to other careers with the Commercial Appeal in Memphis and the Pensacola News Journal. They went on to do great things. And then got out of the newspaper industry when it was obviously, not doing so well. And we're all fact checkers because that's what we had to do. We had to vet so many stories every day before they went into the paper. We had to talk to the reporters, and if they didn't back check a source, we would back check it. So we're really good at fact checking. And the thing that we run into is not that people intentionally put errors in their books, but they just misremember a date, or they forget that it didn't happen exactly that way, or something else came out later in coverage, media coverage later, that showed this is really what happened. So we go back and research everything. We had one book that we did for a church, and in the middle of it there was just a couple of quotes from this pastor who was supposedly wonderful. And one of my assistant editors back checked his name and discovered he had embezzled over $100,000 from the church and had been cast out of the church and, all of this. And so immediately we went to them and said, we don't think you want to quote this person in your book. And they said, no, absolutely not. So that's the kind of things that we check on. Do we just make sure the name of every website is correct, the event is correct, the date is correct, all those things. And if a quote doesn't seem to ring true, I guess after all the years of checking, you just have a feeling that something's off. We'll actually go look up the quote to see if that was really what was said. So we do a really good job fact checking.
And that's important. So important. Back to what you were saying about you can't always trust something that is new, because AI is, well, it's not new, but because I remember the first ones that they had to do smart homes.
Mm-hmm.
And they would could not be trusted. So you have to understand that nothing is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
No one is. And if you rely on them remembering everything correctly, knowing everything, even if it's a really trusted source, you still need to do research.
Yeah.
I've trusted what some people have told me, and then I find out, well, yeah, that was true 30 years ago.
True.
Because I've never been in that arena.
Yeah.
And it's not true today. Or the things have changed in the last 5 years. Or because as a fiction writer, 90% of my work has to be truth. The background, all of that.
Yes.
For my readers to be able to believe it.
Right.
Or a working theory.
Yes. And my husband loved writing science fiction, so I used to proofread his short stories and helped him with the novel before he passed. So yes, I understand the genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I wrote one short story, and I was trying to figure out how somebody could get from here to several galaxies away in just a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a wormhole, there was a wormhole involved, but instead of just wormholes that people talk about, I found out that there's a theory, a working theory, unfolding light. Now that's fast.
Yes.
That's really fast. So I used that. Don't know anything about it, but
sounds like a good premise to me.
Yeah. And I think that's why I am excited about working with you. Not only having this interview, but working with you is because I know I can lean on you and know that anyone who brings something to you can trust the integrity that you bring to a project, to something, is just shines forth. And that is vital to anybody in any industry.
Yeah.
What would you advise somebody who is just emerging as a writer, besides putting buttons here? What would the steps that they're going to need? what would you advise them to address, to really research?
If first they need to know their goal in writing, that's number one. Then they need to determine, if it's fiction or nonfiction, you need to create an outline. What are all of the elements in your story? Whether it's fiction or nonfiction, there needs to be an outline so that you know this is what will be covered. And then you need to see, where are the gaps? What have I got to research that I do not know? Now, your book can grow. You may say, well, I'm only going to have 6 chapters, but you might end up with 20, and that's okay. The book will be done when it's done. There, you do reach a certain point where you realize you've written enough. You've got to stop. And if someone tells me they have a 400-page novel, I'm thinking, okay, we can probably cut that back to 250 pages, There may be a lot in there that isn't necessary. So we try to help writers shape their book so that they understand what it needs to look like at the end of the road. You're here at point A. By point B, you need to have your outline in place, and you know who your characters are, or the main people that you're talking about, whether if it's nonfiction, and why they're necessary to your story. Why are these characters in your fiction necessary to your story? What do you want each one to bring to your story? And then when you get to the end of it, we can go back and fill in if there are gaps. If you realize that this character was more important than you thought and there should have been something said in an earlier chapter, you can still fix that. Or if you realize you forgot an episode that was really key, where you saw a U.S. president talking to someone in the hallway and they had this conversation and you were close by and you heard it, whatever it might be, you can add those details in at the end and make sure but it is easier to start following your outline first so that you don't get to the end and have all of many things that you need to add. And some of the things are basic. Checking names, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You don't want someone's name to change in the middle of the book. I see that happen. I can't tell you how many times I've read a 5-star reviewed book and seen a character's name change in the middle of the book and thought, wait. Drives me crazy. That's an easy fix. You do edit, search and replace.
Yep. Been there, done that, wore that t-shirt out. Yeah.
And then, you need to be sure, particularly if it's nonfiction, you need to be sure that you have your dates and your facts and your names correct. And the actual events as they happened have got to be correct. It's because nothing will diminish your book more quickly than for a reviewer to go through it and say, oh, that's not what happened. Well, that's the end, then you've lost the integrity of your book. So those things. And then if it's fiction, you're right. You have to do all of this research. Why did it take us 4 years to write the Captain of the Tides Gunner Morgan book? Because in addition to all of the Navy documents, we were trying to establish where he was living in Havana. What did the house look like? What were the stores down the street? And when he was in Key West, where was the house, which is still there? All these details that lend truth and were true and are still true today. That lends integrity to your manuscript. So starting out with the plan, working the plan, checking halfway through to make sure you're still working the plan, and then when you get to the end, going back and making sure, did I follow my plan? Now, that doesn't mean you can't diverge. If you realize that, particularly if you're writing fiction, you realize, I've heard authors say, I realized the character was at this point, and I thought, but I don't want them to go there. I want them to go here. You can fix that. It's developmental writing. That's what you do. But it wouldn't be helpful if you got to what you thought was the end of your 300-page book and discovered that some character just wandered off and vanished in the middle of the story, you know. So those are my things. Number one, a good friend of mine who is a Pulitzer nominated writer and a college professor writes every single day. He tries to set aside 2 hours in the morning before his day begins because he is a faculty professor. But he has his butt in his desk at 6 in the morning, and between 6 and 8 he is writing. And he has published in no telling how many magazines, journals, novellas, plus novels, you know. But the point is that he writes every day. You've got to have that inspiration to write and create. And if that means you listen to your favorite music, whatever that may be, I don't know whether it's going to be Mozart for studying or whether it's going to be Queen or Sarah McLachlan or whoever your favorite musicians are. But find a quiet place, put a do not disturb on your door, and turn on your music.
That is good advice. Very, very good advice. And it's also something it sounds like your business helps somebody do.
Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because
we have one author that I dearly love, and she has written 2 novels, Southern Gothic mystery novels, and they're great. And she's working on her 3rd one. And she had to take a delay for a year because of some health issues with the family, whatever. But she writes, she has a silo in her backyard, but she has turned into the Diva Den. And that is her writing place. She's decorated the interior of the silo. It's beautiful. And that is where she goes, out in the backyard, for her peace and contentment to write. And I realize that there are going to be people who say, well, you know, I'm in an apartment with people next door, or I've got 2 kids wandering around on the floor. Somehow find a space that is yours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know I made a space. I took a den, and it's mine. And I get up early, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. And yes, I may be not writing on my opus, but I write things about, letters that have to go out. But I'm writing, I'm doing something that is creative. Because letters, I don't do form letters. So they're personal. Emails are personal. I work on my newsletter, all of that, along with my opuses that I'm working on. And it has helped me a great deal. And I like the silence. My dogs are quiet. My husband is, well, he's up and about now, and he appreciates the quiet too. When he wants noise, he puts on headphones. So, but I think that's excellent advice for anyone. I've used it in my past, and it's helped me get where I am today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been so wonderful having you with us and finding out more about Jacque Hillman and her company. There's going to be a slide following that you can stop and pause on, and it's going to have how you can contact her and what her email, all of that is, and then also what mine is. So if you have ideas or questions, you can contact us both. Until next time, have a wonderful life. Jacque, thank you for being with me today.
This has been fun.